This is Joe Garagiola, and you've just heard how Stand-A-Man Musial became a member of one of baseball's most exclusive clubs. Only 7 other players belong to that one. Names like Anson, Lajoie, Collins, Speaker, Cobb, Wagner, and Paul Wainer. 7 times batting champion of the National League. Stan Musial has a lifetime batting average of .333 and is the holder of more than 40 National League records, most of them made with his bat. And that's who's right here with me to try and help you boys with your batting problems. How about it, Stan?
Instruction in hitting, it seems to me, should start with the bat. So let's talk about that first. As you all know, there are many kinds and types of bats. But I believe that you should select one that feels best to you.
Well, Stan, what about when a coach or somebody instructing you says, use a bat like so-and-so?
Never mind what anybody else uses. Pick one that feels comfortable to you as you grip it. It has to feel good. Then swing it to find out if it feels balanced in your hands. Make sure that it's not top-heavy.
Well, then if it's balanced, does that mean it feels good?
Yes, balance is most important. For unless your bat is properly balanced, you can't guide it properly or swing it effectively.
What about weight, Stan? How important is that?
That's very important. You know, the tendency now in the major leagues is toward both shorter and lighter bats. So let me say this to you boys. Don't try to swing a heavy bat.
Stan, do you get a kick out of some of the youngsters when you see them swinging a real heavy bat?
Every time I see one of you fellas with a bat that's too heavy for you, it seems to me that the bat's swinging the boy rather than the boy swinging the bat. Against fastball pitching, you got to get that bat around fast. And that's impossible to do if your bat's too heavy.
What about the length of the bat? How do you determine that?
As I said before, Major League bats got shorter as they got lighter. The rules of baseball say that a bat shall not be more than 42 inches in length. In the Little League, the rule is not more than 33 inches. Now, my bat is about 1.5 inches longer than the Little League rules allow. And I'm a pretty good-sized fella.
Stan, how about in the major leagues? How long do you figure the average bat is?
I'd say there are very few bats in the major leagues that are longer than 35 inches. And remember, the longer the bat, the stronger you have to be to swing it. And also that when you increase the arc of your swing, the more time it takes to get the end of the bat around. In a game that calls for split-second timing, don't slow up your swing with a bat that's too long. Let me say this, however, that it should be long enough to cover the area of the plate when you swing it. Just make sure you're not giving away the plate because your bat is too short. Those pitches are tough enough without you boys giving them the outside part of the plate.
Imagine that. Pitchers are tough enough. You wouldn't give them anything, would you, Stan? What about your own bat?
Joe, my bat is 34.5 inches long, and it weighs 31 or 32 ounces. But remember, boys, I'm 6 feet tall, and I weigh about 180 pounds.
How long have you been using that model bat, Stan?
Joe, I haven't changed my bat in 20 years. When I was in the minor leagues, I found a combination that I liked. I saw 2 bats side by side, a Babe Ruth model and a Jimmy Fox model, and it gave me an idea. I like the thin handle of the Babe Ruth bat because my hands are small, and I like the barrel of the Jimmy Fox bat. So I had the bat company put the 2 together. The result was a bat that I liked, and one that suited me for over 20 years. So my advice to you boys is, when you find a good-feeling bat, stay with it.
I bet you those pitchers wish you'd change that bat once in a while, Stan. Hey, you want to talk about the grip now?
Yes, but before we go on to talk about the grip, there's one final thing I'd like to bring out about the bat. So if you will look at picture number 1 in your Stand-A-Man picture album, I'll tell you about it. Between my 2 fingers on the barrel of the bat is the hitting area. Ball players call it the fat of the bat. When you hear a ball player say he got good wood on the ball, he means that he hit the ball in this area. It's about 10 inches long, as you can see, and it is here you must hit the ball if you're going to get base hits. That's what makes hitting so tough. The hitting area of the bat is about 10 inches, and the plate is 17 inches wide. So there's an area about 7 inches you got to do something about.
Yeah, but Stan, you say do something about. Myself, what can I do about it?
In order to get good wood on the ball, you'll have to swing differently depending whether the ball is pitched on the inside or the outside of the plate. I'll talk more about this when we get to the swing. But remember, the fat of the bat, that's important.
Stan, let's get back and talk some more hitting. Tell us how to hold the bat.
Proper placement of the fingers and hands on the handle of the bat is of great importance because it's the key to the wrist and arm action that follows. We'll start with picture number 2, which shows how to place the bottom hand on the handle of the bat. Place the bottom part of the bat handle across the hand at the base of the fingers, right where the fingers end and the palm begins, just as you see me doing in the picture. If you place it deep in the palm, the heel of the hand will be pushed in toward the bat, locking the wrist. It's just as wrong to hold it way out in the fingers. Do it exactly as I have done in the picture, and after you have placed it there, close the fingers around the bat as I am doing in picture number 3. Now that you're looking at picture number 3, be sure you are gripping the handle of the bat firmly with the fingers, but not too tight.
Stan, you say not too tight. What happens when you grab it too tight or you squeeze the bat handle?
Don't squeeze the handle of the bat, for that will tense the muscles of your forearm and lock your wrist. The arm and wrist should be relaxed and loose while the grip is firm. Now let's go to picture number 4. Bring your thumb down across the bat handle as I am doing, and now you have the bottom hand properly placed on the bat. So let's move right ahead and get the other hand on there. Let's go to picture number 5. Now that you're holding the bat properly with your bottom hand, pick it up and lay it across your other hand, right where the fingers end and the palm begins, just as I am doing. And now that you've done that, we'll go to picture number 6. Now curl your finger around the bat handle just as I am doing. Hold that bat firmly now, but not too tight. And when you've done that, we'll go to picture number 7. Bring that thumb around as I am doing in picture number 7, and you are now holding the bat properly. Have the hands close together. Don't jam them against each other. Remember, the grip should be comfortable. One thing you'll have to guard against. Don't let the bat handle slide back into the slot formed by the bottom of the thumb and the first finger on either hand. Holding the bat firmly in the fingers will prevent this and give you bat control. Remember, boys, you must have complete control of the bat at all times, and it's your hands that provide that control. Work on this grip until it feels comfortable to you, and remember, keep it firm.
Stan, you've covered the grip pretty thoroughly, but how do you know if the hands are properly lined up?
That's a very good point, Joe. So let's get to that right away. Boys, let's move along in our album to picture number 8. That white line in picture 8 runs through the second joints of my top hand down through a point that is about halfway between the second joints and the big knuckles of my lower hand. Check often to see if your hands are lined up this way. After a while, it's going to become automatic, but it's still best to check every once in a while. So don't get careless and get your hands positioned wrong. I want you to look at the position of the wrist of the bottom hand. See how that wrist is bent in toward the body? It doesn't extend straight out from the back of the hand. That's because the way the lower hand is placed on the handle of the bat automatically cocks that wrist. And boys, it's that cocked wrist that allows you to whip that bat around quickly and with the speed that you need for those base hits. Always remember the importance of the hands. They are the key to success in hitting. So keep checking and make certain you got the proper grip on the bat.
I've got a question, Stan. A great many little leaguers have asked me why the bat stings their hands sometimes when they hit the ball. What causes that?
Well, Joe, I think the boys aren't gripping the bat firmly enough. As I said before, they shouldn't squeeze that bat handle, but they must hold it in a good, firm grip. Then I'm sure they'll find that their hands won't sting.
Why don't you tell us how to stand in the batter's box?
That's coming right up, Joe, the stance. And let me say this right away. I don't think you boys should try and imitate my batting stance. After all, a batting stance is an individual thing. No two hitters stand exactly alike. The main thing is to be comfortable standing up there. You should be relaxed and above all ready for the pitch. How you stand is not as important as where you stand.
Stan, you say right there, how you stand is not as important as where you stand. What do you mean by that?
By that I mean that where you stand or stride, the bat must be able to cover every part of the plate. All right, boys, it's time to move on to the next picture, which is number 9. As you can see, my feet are close together for balance and comfort. My weight is on my rear foot. I'm deep in the box because I like to gain that split second longer that it takes the ball to get to me from the pitcher's mound. I'm away from the plate because I like to stride forward into the pitch. I think that makes for more aggressive hitting. And besides, if they throw in close to me, it's very apt to be a ball. If it's on the inside edge of the plate, I can still hit it by striding toward the pitcher.
Stan, once you've taken your position in the batter's box, do you move around?
Once I've taken my position, I try to anchor that back foot. That keeps me from moving around in the batter's box. I want my position to remain constant, so I'll be hitting from the same place every time I swing. Try and stand the same way and in the same place every time you go to the bat. You'll find it will improve your hitting.
What about the hands, Stan? Where should they be?
They are held high so that you won't have to swing up at any pitch in the strike zone. So remember to keep your hands high and above all, try and keep that swing level.
Stan, that takes care of the hands, all right. What about the arms?
They are not hugged in close to my body, which would cramp my swing. They're away from my body so I can get a good, free swing. You must be able to swing freely, easily, and quickly.
Stan, sometimes you see hitters wiggle that bat around between pitches. How about that?
Hold that bat straight up and don't wiggle around between pitches, or you may not be ready when an alert pitcher delivers the ball. Now when you're taking a good, comfortable stance and your arms, hands, and feet are where they should be, remember to hold your head still and keep your eyes constantly on that baseball. Look at the position of my head in that same picture. It's turned completely toward the pitcher so that I can focus both eyes on the spot from which he's going to throw that ball. I'm looking directly at him with both eyes on a level plane. By that I mean my head is straight, it's not tilted, and I'm ready to follow that baseball all the way until it meets the bat or winds up in the catcher's mitt. Now the position of my head changes somewhat, depending whether I'm facing a right or left-handed pitcher. So that you will understand what I'm talking about, let's go on to the next picture. This shows that the location of the spot from which the ball leaves the pitcher's hands depends on which side he's throwing from. Look at the spot from which the ball will come if the pitcher is right-handed. The spot, if he's a right-handed sidearm pitcher, is still further to the left of the pitcher's mound. Now suppose the team you're playing changes pitchers, and now you're facing a left-hander. The spot will be to the right of the mound, looking from the batter's box, and you will have to adjust the position of your head by turning it to the right, so that both eyes may be focused on the exact spot from which the ball starts toward the plate.
Stan, I want to ask you a question right here. What if he happens to be a left-hander with a sidearm delivery?
Then you got to turn your head even more, because the ball will be coming from a place even further to the right. Always position your head and eyes so that you'll get the best possible look at that baseball. Before we finish talking about the stance, I want to bring up another factor. So let's go on to the next picture. The purpose of this diagram is to show that each one of the 4 pitches comes across the plate at a different angle. That's what makes hitting tough. You're trying to hit a moving object that is hardly ever thrown twice the same way. As you can see on the diagram, the angles vary a great deal, so you better have your head and eyes properly placed.
Stan, I'd say you'd cover the stance pretty thoroughly. But you know, you hear a lot of people talk and they say that hitting consists of stance, stride, and swing. Stride is next.
Joe, there's no hard and fast rule about the stride. Most good hitters don't stride much. The important thing to remember is not to overstride. Let's take a look now at picture number 12. The outline of the foot in white shows where my foot was before I took my step. I stride about 12 inches. A great many good hitters don't even stride that much. Joe Garagiola strode only 6 inches, and Ted Williams, with all his power, moved his feet very little. When you stride too far, your weight goes from your back foot to your front foot too quickly. That slows up your hand action, and you hit behind the ball. The result is loss of power, so try not to overstride, boys. It's a bad fault. When you're trying for the long ball, you think you're getting more body and power into your swing by taking a long stride, but actually you're not.
Stan, you're talking about striding and overstriding, which brings up the word slump. Whenever you got into a slump, could you figure a reason why you're in one?
Joe, one of the worst slumps I ever had was caused by overstriding. Just take your normal stride, and if you time the pitch properly with your swing, it will go a long way. And as I said before, overstriding is a bad fault. So avoid it, boys. Don't step any further than you have to. To shift your weight properly from the back foot to the front foot, and bring your hands through quickly and on time. That's the important part of the stride.
Well, isn't the stride actually part of the swing, Stan?
Stride and swing are actions that must be coordinated, which means that they've got to work together. And that's the very next thing we're going to talk about, that all-important swing. That's the final action. That's what makes the bat meet the ball and produces the sound that every hitter likes to hear.
Sure, you good hitters like to hear that. How about us poor catchers back there? We hear that sound, too, because we call for the pitch. And I'll guarantee you one thing, Mr. Musial. Playing against you, you made those catchers really get used to that sound of the bat meeting the ball. Stand right about here. Let's talk about another dramatic highlight in your career, that of Stan the Man Musial. It's a 1955 All-Star game in Milwaukee. You know, you hear that home run. I can't help but remember talking to Yogi about that, how Yogi said to Stan, of course, when you know Stan, you got to realize that he's a very accommodating guy. He talks to catchers and he finishes his conversation when he comes across home plate. In this All-Star game, extra innings and Yogi's feet were hurting, so he said, come on, Stan, my feet are hurting. So Stan said, okay, Yogi, I'll help you out. Bongo, the big home run, game's over, National League wins, and Yogi's feet don't hurt anymore.
Before we start swinging the bat, we first must learn when to swing it. This is very important, and I want to call attention to the broken white line on picture number 13. That's the top of the strike zone for you little leaguers. A pitch thrown above that is a ball. The regular strike zone is represented by a solid white line that runs across the top of the shoulders. Remember my telling you that you should keep your hands high when taking your stance. Well, that's to protect yourself against a pitch that is in the top part of the strike zone. If your hands are high, you can get a good level swing at that pitch. A level swing, that's important. So now we understand where the strike zone is. Let's go on to the next picture. Here you can see the width of that strike zone. It's 17 inches wide, which is the same as the plate. I have my bat extended in my swing, and you can see that the bat covers the area of the plate. You must make sure of this. You don't want to swing and miss any part of that plate. In baseball, you don't give anything away, especially to pitchers. Now, while we're still looking at this picture of the strike zone, and we know that we got the plate covered with the extended bat, notice that my bat is level with the ground. That means that it is being swung correctly. Don't swing down on the ball with a chopping action. Keep your hands level with the pitch, and your swing will be level and you won't drive that ball into the ground. And above all, with a level swing, you won't be hitting up on the ball, which often causes pop-ups or easy flies to the outfield. Let's go to picture number 15 and take another look at it. The first thing to pay attention to in this picture is that the weight is entirely on the front foot. That's ensuring power in the swing. Also, if you look at my head and eyes, you'll see that the head is turned so that the eyes are on the point of impact. That's the proof that I've kept my eye on the ball, and the swing has been well timed because I'm meeting the ball in front of the plate. Look closely at my hands and wrists. You can tell that I got a good firm grip on the bat, and my wrists have already snapped and are starting to turn over for the follow-through in the direction that I've hit the ball. The expression of my face is one of determination. Right here is a good time for me to tell you boys that you must be aggressive in your hitting. Confidence is also important. You must believe, like I do, that every time you go up to the plate, you're going to get a base hit. Stride right into that pitch and hit it. Now, I don't mean by that you should be swinging with all your might and trying for a home run every time you're up there, but I do mean that you should be an offensive hitter and not a defensive one. Don't be looking for that base on balls. Go up there to hit, and you'll do it more often than not.
Stan, to listen to you talk about hitting the way you're doing it sounds like you're giving away some of the secrets of hitting. Some guys make it sound so secret.
Well, one of the secrets of hitting, Joe, is to meet the ball at all times and meet it with a hard, controlled swing. But don't have a lazy swing. Don't swing half-heartedly at a pitch. If you made up your mind that it's a good pitch, swing at it with force and really mean it. Attack the ball. If the pitcher throws that ball in a strike zone, swing at it. If you don't swing, you can't hit it. So make up your mind you're not going to take any pitches that are thrown in the strike zone. Don't worry about striking out. You look a lot better striking out swinging at a pitch than you do standing there with the bat on your shoulder. Just remember to always be on the attack when you're in that batter's box and act accordingly. Another thing, you must hit the ball where it's pitched.
Stan, what do you mean you must hit the ball where it's pitched? Are you talking about all pitches, or are you talking about a particular pitch?
I'm talking about pitches within the strike zone now. You know, there's quite a few places they can throw that ball and still be in the strike zone. If the pitch is on the outside of the plate, step in toward it and drive it to the opposite field with less body turn and not so much wrist action. If the ball is thrown on the inside of the plate, the bat must be brought around more quickly as you step toward the pitcher. The wrist must snap that bat around to get that good wood on the ball. Don't get discouraged if at first you hit a lot of balls back to the pitcher or to center field. This means that your timing is good and that you're meeting the ball squarely.
Stan, how about pulling a ball or hitting the ball to the opposite field?
The ability to pull a ball or hit to the opposite field comes only with practice and a lot of it. You must adjust your foot action so that you're not swinging too soon or too late. You'll find that a faster stride and a quicker swing increases the ability to pull the ball. To hit to the opposite field, you wait longer, take your normal swing, and punch the ball. It takes more skill to hit to the opposite field, and you got to practice to attain this. Above all, don't be afraid to step in toward the plate for that outside pitch. As long as you're wearing a helmet and you have no business hitting, even in practice without one, you can't get hurt. So spend a lot of time stepping in and punching that ball to the opposite field. To be able to hit to all fields is, of course, a tremendous advantage because the opposing team doesn't know how to set their defense against you. You got them guessing as where you're going to hit the ball, and your ability to cross them up makes for winning baseball.
Stan, you spoke a while ago about wrist action and snap of the wrist. Can you cover that just a little more thoroughly?
I sure can, Joe. So let's get right to that picture, number 16, and further analyze the swing. This close shot of the wrist shows you the proper position and impact. The bat is being whipped through the ball and into the follow-through. The wrist will continue to turn until at the end of the follow-through, the position of the wrists will be reversed. The lower wrist will actually be on top as the arms swing around to the rear. And that brings us to the follow-through, so let's go to picture number 17. The bat has been swung completely around, just about as far as it will go. And notice that even though I've gone completely around, that I still got a good hold on that bat. Whatever you do, don't throw or sling that bat after you've swung. That's a very bad habit to get into and a hard one to break, so don't do it. Another thing to note in the follow-through is that the weight is still on that forward foot where it should be. Now look at the rear foot. It's being dragged forward from the place where it was anchored in the stance. It's now ready to take that first step toward first base.
Stan, what do you think are the hardest pitches to hit?
Joe, the high inside pitch and the low outside pitch are the hardest balls to hit. I know they are for me, and for most hitters in the big leagues as well. So, boys, let's move along to the next pitcher, number 18. First, notice that the body and knees are straightened up because the pitch is high, and the hands are kept high for that level swing. It's on the inside of the plate, so you should step toward the pitcher and not toward the plate for this one. By stepping toward the pitcher, you have a chance to get that bat around, and at the same time, get that fat of the bat on the ball. Otherwise, you'll be hitting the ball on the handle, and chances are if you do, you'll be an easy out. All right, let's go to the next album picture, which is number 19.
Stan, all pitchers pitch low. It's a tough one to hit. What can you do about this low pitch?
This is a real tough pitch to hit, boys, but it can be done. First, notice that I've bent my body lower to get better leverage for my swing, and also that I've lowered my hands to keep my swing as level as I can. If it's right across the knees, which is where most pitchers try to throw, I've got to drop the end of my bat enough to get down to where the ball is. Remember that you got to step in toward the plate to successfully hit this pitch, because it's on the outside of the plate, and you must get the fat part of the bat over to where the ball is.
Stan, you're a fine bunter, and that's a very important part of hitting. What does it take to become a good bunter?
Joe, picture number 20 is the first one on bunting. So let's look at that now. The ability to bunt should be mastered by every ball player. Just because you're either a pitcher or a slugger is no reason why you shouldn't learn to bunt and to bunt well. First, remember that in a bunt situation, you should take your normal stance as I'm doing, and don't commit yourself to the bunt until the last possible moment so they can't set the defense against you. Keep those infielders back as long as you can. Now let's go to picture 21 in your Stand the Man picture album. I'll tell you about it. Here you see I'm facing the pitcher. I've swung around by pivoting on my front foot, and my body is squared off facing the pitch. My lower hand has retained its position near the bottom of the handle, while my other hand has been moved down toward the trademark. Keep the bat high because it's much easier to lower it than to bring it up. In a sacrifice situation, most pitchers try to keep the ball high in the hopes that you'll pop it up in the air. So it's best to be ready for the high pitch. Bend if the ball comes low and drop your hands. And remember to hold that bat loosely in your hands and let the ball hit it. The recoil of the bat will help the ball roll slowly in the infield, which is what you want.
Stan, when you talk about the bunt and you use the word sacrifice bunt, you know, I kind of think that word sacrifice kind of wraps up this game of baseball as to exactly what it means.
Joe, baseball is a team game. It's the team that's important, not the individual. Always remember that. And remember also that it is a sport, and it has a code of rules which must be obeyed. Sportsmanship is an important factor. Play hard and play to win. Never quit and never give up until the last man is out. And another thing, your coaches and managers are there to help you learn the fundamentals of the game. Go to them for advice and do as they say. Above all, remember there is no better way to improve yourself than to keep practicing at it.
Stan, you've played baseball a long time, longer than most big league stars. What's your secret?
Joe, I've been lucky, I know that. I've always kept in top condition. I've never been seriously injured, and I always watch my diet. Sleep is most important. You can't play baseball well when you're tired. Weight, of course, is another factor. If you find yourself putting on that extra weight so that those scales are going up too fast, try pushing yourself away from the table before you stuff yourself. Plenty of exercise, and 8 hours sleep should be the right program for any growing boy. And now, Joe, I've been talking a long time, so before I go over the high spots in sort of a recap of what I've been telling the boys, how about a few of those stories of yours?
Stan, you keep talking about stories of mine, and really they're not stories. It's just that I'm trying to prove a point that when catchers are talking to umpires, that's exactly what they're doing. They're not stories. They're not arguing. They're just trying to help them. I can remember a game where Dewey Williams, the catcher, was asked to leave. He merely asked one simple question. Came at a bad time, I'll grant you that. It was a 2-2 count, and a pitch came across his cap. Beans reared and said, "Strike!" And when he called it strike 3, all Dewey Williams asked was one question. He said, "Hey, Beans, how can you get that square head in a round mask?" Hank Sauer got kicked out of a game. You think these are stories. They're not. Hank Sauer got kicked out of a game for just trying to help an umpire. You know how a mask is made with an iron bar on top and an iron bar at the bottom? After a third strike, that was a bad time. But Hank Sauer just suggested, he said to the umpire, if you look between the bars instead of through the iron, you'd see better. And you would. Those are not stories, Stan. We're just trying to help umpires. All catchers are trying to help them. Of course, a guy like you, everybody likes you. Umpires, catchers. Why, you've been a great ball player, and you've set any number of records. I know I don't get tired of hearing about your records. Here's another record-breaking performance of yours. That's when a record that had stood for many years was finally broken. It was Honus Wagner's record for number of hits. So let's go back to that momentous day in Los Angeles in 1962. Now, boys, let's get back to Stan the Man for some last-minute tips.
Boys, let's just go over some of the important points and what I've been telling you about hitting. Don't try and swing too heavy a bat, and find one that handles easily. Remember how I told you to grip the bat. Line your hands up properly and grip the bat firmly, but not too tight. Stand comfortable in the batter's box. Don't try to imitate anyone. Hold your hands high and keep your arms from being too close to your body. Keep your head still and your eyes on the ball. Don't overstride. Hit the ball where it's pitched with a hard level swing and try to hit to all fields. Be an aggressive hitter, but don't swing too hard. Be a team player, and remember that baseball is a sport to enjoy. Above all, have fun playing baseball.
Rooting for the Hall